Good morning. Thank you all for being here in Hernando County this morning. I'm joined by State Attorney Bill Gladson, Sheriff Al Nienhuis, and Special Counsel from our Office of Statewide Prosecution, Rita Peters. Today is a good day for Florida. We're getting a dangerous, evil criminal off the streets, ideally forever. What we're going to discuss today can be described as nothing other than true evil. I think by now you know that Nathan Holmberg was arrested, suspected of serious child sex abuse, criminal activity. The grand jury has come back with an official indictment for child sex battery. The evidence shows that this individual engaged in sexual abuse with a 3-year-old. Not only did he engage in these horrific physical acts, but he also filmed them. There are at least 5 or 6 other victims out there that the investigation has shown exist. Other charges will be filed in other counties, and there's no telling how far this investigation will go. So if you have information out there, please contact Sheriff Nienhuis and his team to get this information to the people that are working on this case. I want to thank the Sheriff's Office, our law enforcement, the investigators who do put in the real hard work on cases like this, reviewing horrific evidence, stuff that's tough to look at, but they've got to do it to put the record together, to write up the reports, and ultimately get the charges to seek justice. I'm going to announce this morning that in this case, we will be seeking the death penalty. I believe that crimes like this against young children, where you take their innocence, you take their childhood away from them, these horrific acts deserve the ultimate form of justice. So we will be doing everything we can legally to send him to meet his maker. Now, the United States Supreme Court case of Kennedy versus Louisiana does run up against us in this effort. We're certainly aware of that. That court, for those who do not know, said that you cannot seek the death penalty for child sex abuse. We believe that today's Supreme Court should reevaluate and reinterpret the law to allow this form of justice. You have somebody that raped and sexually abused a 3-year-old and filmed it. The evidence shows hundreds of files, photos, and videos of other child pornographic and abuse content. Again, this is not an individual that can be rehabilitated. This is someone that needs to face the ultimate form of justice. So I'll let the experts up here provide more details on the facts. It's an honor to support them every single day. For the first time in state history, we've delegated our statewide investigative powers to the Sheriff's Office, under the State Attorney's Office, so that our investigators can begin looking in other counties where we believe additional victims might exist, additional evidence. So you're going to see a lot more of this. I think we've made clear here in Florida that we're going after child predators like never before. We're seeing efforts using technology, social media, and applications to prey upon kids in new ways. Parents at home need to wake up. These cell phones are dangerous. Your kids very well may be talking to predators on the other end of the phone and not even know who they're talking to. We see dozens of cases these days where physical abuse happens, but it originates online. Applications like Roblox, a gaming app for young kids, Snapchat, other social media sites. Pay attention, figure out what your kids are doing, take it seriously. You can save your children if you take this seriously. So I appreciate you all being here this morning for this somber but important subject. Florida's going to continue to be the safest state in the country to raise our kids. And I'm just, thanks be to God for our law enforcement and investigators, people that have to look at this stuff and put these cases together. But they're getting a dangerous guy off the streets. So with that, I will turn it over to the great State Attorney, Bill Gladson.
Thank you, General. Good morning, everybody. I do appreciate the kind words, General. And the Sheriff's Office and the amount of work they put into this case is truly incredible. I want to cover some topics because I anticipate some questions on this case. As you heard, it is extremely disturbing set of circumstances. I would ask that since we have a lot to cover after the four of us have talked, the general, the sheriff, and Rita Peters from Assistant Statewide Prosecutor, after she gets a chance to speak, then we're going to open up for some questions. Prosecutors in Florida have an obligation to be very confined about what they say before a trial. So our pretrial comments have to be limited to what is in the public record and what is commonly known by the people in the community. And there's a reason for that. The reason is everybody wants a fair trial, but the state has a right to a fair trial as well. So our constitutional responsibility has to be balanced against our obligations to make sure that we're transparent with the community about what we do and that the media has accurate information about a particular case. So we balance those two obligations, and that's why we're here today, because we do believe it's important to let everybody know where we are and what this community is going through. Without question, Florida leads the nation in providing for victims' rights, without question. It used to be that crime victims and their families felt like they were sidelined because they didn't feel like they had a say in the criminal justice process. Florida does not do that anymore. Florida sits at the top in the nation as far as giving crime victims rights and their family members rights. And that's something that is really important to us as an office, and we take that responsibility seriously. There is no more important time in a prosecutor's career than when they are advocating for children. And that's because children can't fight for themselves. I tell our prosecutors all the time, your job is to fight for those who can't fight for themselves. And this is the kind of case where, we put it all on the line. And there's really no place where our advocacy is more important. So a little over 2 weeks ago, a Good Samaritan came to the sheriff's office with information about Nathan Holmberg. And the sheriff's office got on this case immediately. Extremely quickly, they gathered evidence. And as you heard before from a previous press conference, the critical piece of evidence was a cell phone. And in that cell phone contained images of just unspeakable crimes against young children, production of child pornography, and it's hard to describe, and that's why we're not going to do that. But that critical piece of evidence became the focal point of this case. And from there, it has expanded into other jurisdictions and other types of crimes, all sexual in nature, that the sheriff's office has been uncovering. Due to the seriousness of the charges, and frankly because in Hernando County we have zero tolerance for child predators, as soon as he was arrested, he was put in custody on no bond, and he remains on no bond. He's going to be on no bond until this case is resolved. On Monday the 10th, the grand jury convened here in Brooksville. They heard evidence, and they issued a true bill of indictment charging Nathan Holmberg with multiple counts. And I'm going to go through some of the counts right now so you have an idea of what they are, but we're also going to share a redacted indictment with you as well. So counts 1 through 7 of the indictment allege the defendant committed sexual battery on a child under 12. Each of those charges carries a mandatory life sentence in prison and is eligible for the death penalty. So counts 1 through 7 are death penalty eligible. Counts 8 through 11 allege lewd and lascivious molestation of a child under 12. Each of these counts constitutes a life felony in Florida. Counts 12 through 14 allege the defendant committed lewd and lascivious conduct upon a child, a second-degree felony punishable by up to 15 years in prison. And in addition to the indictment returned on Monday, Nathan Holmberg was arrested and charged by information with the following: 83 counts of possession of child pornography, 1 count of lewd and lascivious molestation on a separate victim, 4 counts of production of child sexual abuse material, which is child pornography, involving 3 additional victims. All told, we have 5 separate child victims here in Hernando County that we've identified so far. I should stress the indictment issued by the grand jury was for crimes that occurred here in Hernando County only. These crimes occurred between December 27th, 2024 and October 20th, 2025, the date that he was arrested by the sheriff's office. And those are the dates that he started when he first moved here until he was arrested. To be clear, the detectives uncovered evidence that additional crimes have occurred outside of the 5th Judicial Circuit, and I believe the Office of Statewide Prosecutor Rita Peters might be discussing some of the general broad aspects of that as well. For purposes of background, as you heard the General mention, that we are seeking the death penalty. In Florida, capital cases where the death penalty is an option, and in Florida, capital sexual battery is one of those statutes, we have to go to a grand jury. We can't just file an information and charge somebody. Those things have to go before the grand jury as a body. And once they issue a true bill, then it's our obligation to take the case and present it to the court. The day that they issued their true bill of indictment on all these counts, I filed a death notice in this case. Now, Florida requires that there be at least 2 statutory aggravators in every case that you're going to seek the death penalty on. In this particular case, we've alleged 4 aggravators, and you'll have a copy of that death notice along with a redacted copy of the indictment so you can see it for yourself. You know, filing a death notice is not something we take lightly. We look at the specific facts of every single case. We look at the impact on the victims. We look at the impact on the community, and we have to recognize that sometimes in these cases, not only are the children the victims, but the state is a victim, the community is a victim as a whole. In those aggravators, and when you have that before you, you'll be able to kind of see a little bit more, not necessarily detail about the case, but why this case is different than every other case. There are a couple people I want to thank before I turn it over. Angelina Rodio was one of our prosecutors who presented to the grand jury, and my chief assistant, Walter Forgey, also presented, and assistant statewide prosecutor Rita Peters also attended the grand jury. And the preparation that went into this case from the detectives, and I want to name some of them in particular because it really, we've worked with them now almost, nearly 24 hours a day since this happened. So here we've got Hernando County Detectives Troy Heiler, Christopher Loretto, Tom Cameron, and Sean Galarza. Tireless pursuit of justice in this case on behalf of these victims. I also want to mention the forensic detectives, the ones that have to go through these devices and pour through these phones and look at these images. Detectives Vassalero and Weston did an incredible job in this particular case. And we often fail to recognize the people in the background, the crime scene technicians, the forensic people. They put the most evidence, the most compelling evidence that we have as prosecutors. They're very often the ones who give that to us and get it before a jury and a grand jury for that matter. So they do need to be recognized because of the work that they do. One final thought before I turn it over. When making capital sexual battery death penalty eligible, when Florida did that, the legislature said the following: such crimes destroy the innocence of a young child and violate all standards of decency held by civilized society. Now, I couldn't agree with that more. This is why we're here. This is why we fight. And these types of crimes are obviously the most serious, but that's why we are here doing what we are doing. We are here to protect the most vulnerable in our community. You can't unsee these photographs. You can't unsee these videos. These images haunt anybody who's had to lay eyes on them. They really do. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sheriff Nienhuis for some comments. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Hernando County Sheriff Al Nienhuis. And for those of you who may not have heard all the details, this actually started back last month on the 20th when, as was mentioned, a Good Samaritan came in, and almost immediately we knew that this was one of the more serious, if not the most serious, child sexual battery cases that we'd ever investigated. Within 10 days, we did the press conference explaining what we had, and of course here we find ourselves today. And to reiterate a couple things, my detectives immediately contacted the state attorney's office on this and any other significant cases that we have, and got them on board very quickly. And I have to say, not just in this case, but any significant case we have, our state attorney, Bill Gladson, and his people are second to none when it comes to helping us in our goal of protecting the citizens and keeping them safe. They get on board very quickly and give us guidance to help make the prosecution as viable as we possibly can, as early on as we possibly can. But something we don't do very often is I got on the phone and called our Attorney General, and he answered. And, I certainly don't try to abuse that, but he and I spoke briefly about this. And for anybody who, and I've worked for the state, and I know sometimes they can be bureaucratic, but I will tell you in this particular case, it was anything but bureaucratic. The Attorney General and his people were on board immediately and moved very, very quickly to provide us with any possible support that we could need in investigating and preparing for the grand jury on this particular case. And so I want to personally thank you. Appreciate it, Attorney General. And of course, the statewide prosecutor, who you'll hear from momentarily, was on board from the very beginning as well. And as already been mentioned, the detectives, my major case detectives, not only have to look through the pictures and through the videos, and I think we're approaching so far a total of about 575 to 600 videos and pictures. About 100 of those are videos. All of them, none of them were downloaded by this individual. All of them were made by him, and he even mentioned in one of his interviews that he doesn't download child porn. He makes his own. So that gives you a little indication of what this person is like. And the detectives Vassalero working to download these things and look at them and categorize them and prepare them for the prosecutors to look at is horrific. But just as difficult, Detective Heiler and Detective Cameron having to sit pretty much knee to knee with this individual and speak to him like they're talking about where they're going to go for lunch, when they're talking about things that the average citizen doesn't even want to think about, much less have to talk about. And I have to give a lot of credit to them. They are consummate professionals when it comes to this, and we're able to obviously get additional information from the suspect. And so to say we appreciate their efforts is a huge understatement. And last, and I said it during the press conference, and they haven't let us down since then, is the Secret Service. And I know sometimes our federal partners get a bad rap, but over the last several years, they have been instrumental in helping us stand up our forensics, digital forensics area, including training several of my detectives, giving us overtime, giving us equipment, tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment to be able to extract the data quickly. If we had to send this data out, we'd probably still be waiting for that data to come back. So, and since that time, the Secret Service has stepped up because they know that my small group of people have been focusing on this, and they've actually helped us with some of our backlog, because the work doesn't stop. Just because you have one major case doesn't mean that all of your other cases stop. They don't. And so I've got to really give a lot of credit to Secret Service. They've been very instrumental in getting us to the point that we're at today. Again, I appreciate the support of the public. I will tell you, in Hernando County, a very conservative county, this type of where you take advantage of true victims, and oftentimes in law enforcement, and it certainly does not make it right, and we try to get justice for any victim, but oftentimes we find people are leading a high-risk lifestyle. But when you're talking about victims that are between 3 years old and the oldest 10 years old who'd been victimized for a while, these are true victims. They have done nothing to put themselves in to this situation, and so getting justice for them is priority one for us, for our state attorney, and for our Attorney General, as well as I know the governor and the legislature. They are serious about this, and we certainly appreciate the support we get from them and from our local community. We never take it for granted. So now I'll turn it over to our statewide prosecutor. I think she has some words as well. So, yeah.
Good morning. As you heard, my name is Rita Peters, and I'm an assistant statewide prosecutor and special counsel to our Attorney General, James Uthmeier. I, along with my co-counsel, who is actually in the audience today, Brianna Zupko, we have the honor and the pleasure of actually assisting the 5th Judicial Circuit under the State Attorney, Bill Gladson, on this case. When I was contacted by our statewide prosecutor, Bradley McVeigh, telling me we might need to get involved in this case to assist the 5th, yes didn't come out of my mouth fast enough. After prosecuting these types of crimes for a quarter of a century, yes, I said that right, 25 years I've been involved in sex crimes prosecution, this is by far one of the most heinous investigations that I've ever been involved in. I thank our partners, our prosecution partners in Hernando County, through the 5th Judicial Circuit and the leadership of State Attorney Bill Gladson, as well as by the sheriff and his detectives, who are absolutely committed and dedicated to this investigation. This is more than just a commitment. This is our shared duty, because when a child is harmed, it harms the entire community, and it shakes us, but it takes unfailing courage and perseverance to ensure that these emotionally charged cases are prosecuted. But no one prosecutes these cases alone. And what you've heard today is that part of this investigation goes outside of Hernando County, and we will take the baton from the 5th Judicial Circuit and continue this investigation wherever the facts may lead to ensure that justice is done. When we prosecute these cases, it takes a team of prosecutors, not just one person. It takes the leader and their assistants. It also takes investigators, law enforcement, support staff, and victim advocates, because we walk alongside those child victims in our pursuit of justice. Children are the most valuable resource we have, and it is our responsibility to protect them. It belongs to all of us, prosecutors, law enforcement, and the community. When a child is harmed, it is because an adult made a choice to hurt them. And it is our job to ensure that those actions and those choices carry very heavy consequences. It is not an easy duty to announce death on a case, because at the end of that death sentence, we know that a child had to be harmed for us to ask for that type of a sentence. While we cannot undo the harm that has been inflicted upon these children, we will take every step we can to ensure that there is accountability. And that's what justice looks like: partnership, persistence, and protection. Our mission is simple: to ensure that justice is served, and we always will do what is right. We will always stand with our victims, and I'm so thankful that our Attorney General, his top priority is to keep Florida safe. Thank you.
Yeah, here in Florida, we're going to stop at nothing to protect our kids. That's my commitment, and it's the commitment of this team up here. As long as we're here, we will do absolutely everything to protect our children. And again, I'll conclude by thanking our law enforcement. Florida is a law and order state. We are a safe state because we get it. It's not complicated. We give these guys the support they need. We've got their backs. And at the end of the day, we let them do their jobs here in Florida. We empower them. We defend them. We give them the tools to be successful. And they do a terrific job. So thank you, Sheriff. The investigators and prosecutors that had to go through this harmful stuff, we've talked about what a heavy lift that is, and it cannot be said enough. And it's why I've called on the legislature and hope they will consider adding, the employees of our prosecution offices up and down the state, our investigators, into the special risk retirement pool, where people get more compensation towards retirement and can retire earlier. At the end of the day, these people, they stick their necks out. They take enemies head on, face to face in the courtroom. Oftentimes, it's the last face that a dangerous criminal will see before getting locked up. So we're going to have their backs. Thanks again for being here. I think there's time for a few questions. I'm going to, State Attorney, you mind taking the questions? He better knows the details that can be shared. So I'll turn the podium back over to him, unless you need me.
Yes, sir. All right.
Yes, so a couple of weeks ago when the Sheriff had the press conference, he mentioned additional devices that were found, around 30. Are you all able to say, are detectives still combing through that evidence?
I can confidently say they are still going through it. If you want some more specifics about how many devices and how far they've gotten, I can turn it over to the Sheriff.
As late as this morning, I think we're about 2/3 of the way through, roughly. Of course, we don't know what we're going to find on it. Fortunately, Praise the Lord that we have not found additional victims on that, but we still have a ways to go. And I think it's important to reiterate that if anybody has dealt with this particular individual, particularly if they have young children, to make sure they let us know. We have gotten a couple tips, but fortunately those tips did not result in any new victims. But yeah, we still have a ways to go, but we've been through about 2/3 of it. And again, as was said, almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we're combing through that information. So.
Have you notified the accused, and what was his comments about that you're going to go up to the death penalty if the guy that's in jail?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Have you notified the accused of the indictment?
I believe you.
Yeah, I'll just tell you, the process is a capias is issued. He's in custody right now, so he was served with the capias, and his defense attorney was served with the indictment and the notice. So, anybody else have anything?
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.